evening, folks. This is Council President Stacey Kelly. Today's Tuesday, October 27th. We're going to begin with our committee meetings at 6:01 p.m. and we'll begin with the Rules, Ethics, and Ordinance Committee with Chairperson Rick Delaquila.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Very briefly, I understand we have two things in our file, both of which are old matters. These are the issue on the chickens, and the other is the consideration of whether the council should return back to meetings in person rather than virtual meetings. So I'll start with the second one first. Let me first make sure, do I have both of my members here, Councilman Elliott and Councilman Martin?
Del, I'm not on the committee.
I'm sorry. Councilman Snitsky?
I'm here, Richard. Councilman Elliott's here.
Got it. Okay. I had been looking online to see what the various governmental entities around us have been doing, and most particularly I took a look at the state of Ohio as well as Cuyahoga County, and I also very recently was able to get some graphic statistics regarding the current situation in Cuyahoga County with regard to COVID and what's going on with the apparent increase in the number of cases we're experiencing. The status of Cuyahoga County at this point is red, which is the second worst gradient for the number of cases, and the predictions are that the county is likely to be at purple, which is the worst level, relatively soon, perhaps as early as this week. So with that backdrop, I want to throw it over to the members of the committee for your ideas on where we should go or what we should actually recommend to council and to the mayor with respect to whether we should continue with virtual meetings or consider some other alternative, including the possibility of meeting in person. I'm looking at Cuyahoga County. The one graphic I got from Wikipedia, Cuyahoga County in the time period from October 12th to October 25 has a total of 1,837 COVID cases. And I want to take a look at the number of new cases in Ohio. The state of Ohio itself is, for the period actually, for just the day October 21, is at 2,366 new cases for the one day. This is the source for that information is the New York Times. New York Times. So I think where we are is that the cases, the number of reported cases anyway, are actually spiking and not getting any better. So I don't know where that leaves us in terms of the discussion, but obviously we committed to do this, so I will ask the council members, the committee members rather, for your thoughts on whether we want to consider doing anything different than we're doing already.
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Elliott. I'm kind of the one that brought that up to the forefront.
Yeah.
I've been reading over stuff too, and obviously there's a heck of a lot more testing, so obviously the case numbers are going to go up, but I think at this point I'm just going to back off of my stance. It seems like no one's really sure what's going on with it. I know the cases are up, it's just might not be worth doing it. As long as we can keep our meetings orderly and efficient, let's just wait on it. That's my opinion now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Snitsky.
Yes, Councilman Delaquila. I agree with Councilman Elliott. I think we need to stay status quo right now. I know everybody wants to get back to the meeting room and do what's right for the people, but I think that right now, I think that we're doing okay this way, and I think the risk, especially in this environment, outweighs the benefit. I would like to make one request, though, if possible. Here we have, in my ward, really in the city, there's a number of people that have had outstanding moral claims for a long time now due to flooding that happened a year and a half ago, I think now. And if we could bring these people virtually in one at a time, similar to what we do with the zoning and the planning committees, I think that might behoove us to do that, to dispose of that old business. But I do think that we need to continue to do this virtually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Elliott.
Yes.
We could all make this a lot easier if we just go to if everyone can get on the same page and get on video, and then we can actually bring residents in and see their faces. I mean, is that something that everyone could do? I mean, that would make it probably a lot easier. And
I understand there's, we could probably do something if everybody has a webcam. You probably all have, if you have smartphones, you have a camera on your phone, or if you want to do it on your computer, you could probably set it up with a webcam. Maybe that's something we should run by the council as a whole.
Maybe it'd be easier to bring residents to the forefront so they can, we can take care of some of that business.
Right,
Just a thought.
right. There's obviously a concern for the virus among ourselves. I think we also need to be concerned about whether we might be transmitting the virus to anybody who might come to the city hall. It's obviously a two-way street. Okay, let me open it up to the rest of council. Any further thoughts on this from any of the other council members?
Chairperson Delacuilla, this is Council President Kelly.
Hi, please go ahead.
Is that for me?
Yes, Kelly.
Oh, okay, thank you. I would agree with both your statements and Councilman Elliott. I think right now we should just stay status quo, considering the level of alert that we're at right now. As far as Zoom or any other video teleconferencing, I do have storage issues on my phone. On my computer, I don't have a webcam, but I would be willing to look into that as well. That's not a problem. I can't speak for any other council member. I don't know what they have or they don't, but I would be willing to do that if it makes it easier. But yeah, I'm for keeping the meetings the way they are right now, considering everything that's going on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else on council?
Norman Martin.
Mayor? I'm sorry, Councilman Martin, please go ahead.
Thank you. I use video calls all day long in my day job, and have no problem with it, except for I'm not able to, for some reason, my computer will not recognize our current system that we're utilizing here on the GoToMeeting. So maybe a different vendor might be appropriate, something that's a little more robust as well. It comes from a security standpoint.
Thank you. Mayor, are you listening to this conversation?
This is Mayor Bianciata. Of course I am.
Thank you. Well, I didn't mean that you were. I just want to make sure that you heard the whole thing.
Well, this is not a matter of administration. We've offered early on in the process the option to use Zoom and GoToMeeting and a video. So we have license for both. I found the compatibility for GoToMeeting here on the city system to be working a little more efficiently than Zoom. It's a Microsoft product, and we're on a Microsoft platform. We could look into what Councilman Martin has suggested. I'll follow up with him offline. But internally, we've been using GoToMeeting from the get-go. And it's my understanding that that option was presented I'll leave it at that. That has been an option presented by Director Berger to council from the word go. So we certainly, if council wants to implement this going forward, just make that call.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on council who wants to make a further remark? Anyone else on the administration or on this teleconference who wishes to remark on this subject?
Councilman Delaquila, this is Jen Berger.
Hi.
Hi. The administration currently, almost all of us are using the actual, either the app or the web link. So right now, I believe it's just council that's using the call-in. So what it is you can just click that link that comes in the email, and it should automatically either take you to the GoToMeeting website, or it would open the GoToMeeting program if you have it downloaded on your computer. Over at the rec center, because we've been doing some digital classes and CPR trainings and recertifications, we literally bought a camera on Amazon, and it plugs into your HDMI port, and it was like $21. So if that helps anybody out for storage, or if you don't have a camera. Also, if you open the link on your cell phone, it should automatically just take you to it, even if you don't have the app. So whichever is the easiest option.
Okay, this conversation started with Councilman Snitsky raising the issue of the outstanding moral claims. My impression, please correct me if I'm wrong, my impression is that the residents who wish to be heard would also need the same equipment at their end, or something similar at their end. Otherwise, we would have no video of them.
They could do the same thing, so we could open it up after a certain time and let residents in.
Got it.
This
Okay.
is Mayor Biaggiata. If we proceed with that, there needs to be very clear directions on how that participation is going to happen. It isn't going to be a free-for-all where people are being interrupted. The cities that do use call-in, there's very specific times when the unelected officials and non-directive officials, typically then they'll, at the end of a particular meeting, public comment is turned on, and there's an orderly waiting room, and that needs to be administered so that you have one person talking at a time, and it's for comment. So we've had a long history of here of unruly meetings, people talking over people, multiple point of orders, and if we are going to open it up to that kind of thing, which is the right thing to do, there needs to be very specific protocols in place.
Okay, that's a second issue. The first issue we were talking about was the moral claims. This is an issue then on top of that about whether there's going to be a public call-in comment section. That's probably something that the council president needs to review. Okay, is there anyone else online who wishes to be heard on this subject?
Chairperson, this is Stacy Kelly.
Hello, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. In regards to the moral claims, initially, when COVID hit, a letter was sent out to all claimants that, once the restrictions were relaxed or removed, they would receive a minimum of a 5-day notice as to when their claim would be heard. I'm definitely not opposed to listening to the claims, but the problem that arises is that some of these claims have numerous pages of paperwork. Some are very detailed, some are very lengthy. So I'm not quite sure how that would go over in a Zoom-type atmosphere. I think it would be very difficult. So that would be my only concern.
Got it.
Councilman Martin.
Councilman Martin, please.
Thank you. I just want to thank Pat Elliott for his standing down on the issue. I know it can be a passionate type of situation, and I appreciate his reviewing the information you provided to him and allowing us to move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to be heard? All right, at this time then, I will make a motion to table further consideration of this matter and await further developments. Is there a second?
Councilman Elliott, I second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Delaquilla, yes?
Elliott, yes.
Snitsky, yes. Thank you. We will table, at least in our committee, and the other matters for the rest of council and the council president are within their discretion. All right, let's move on to the issue of chickens. What do we want to do with this one, guys?
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Elliott.
Hi, go ahead.
We've been talking about this for a while.
Yes.
I gave everyone a sheet. Everyone should have had it. I believe it was sent out a few months ago, and it was from the surrounding suburbs. I've done major research on this. I'm still getting calls. I actually walked certain areas the other day and got people's feedback, and it was all positive. And it was positive because I think people like this ordinance, and it was basically the same ordinance from Cuyahoga Heights. Now, with that being said, I'm still doing some research. I'm going to sit down with our building commissioner, hopefully next week, and get his ideas on it. I believe he has several ideas and plans moving forward with it. But I'm asking that we put this on the agenda for the next meeting.
Well, as I remember, there were some questions raised, I believe, by the building commissioner at a prior meeting with regard to certain of the limitations that he thought we might want to look at, things like frontage and minimum square footage of the lots and proximity to the neighboring properties, etc. Has that been discussed with him yet?
I have not sat down with him yet. He may be on.
This is Building Commissioner Grassi. Good evening, council members.
Please, hi, go ahead.
Yes, without delving too far into this, I took the time several weeks ago to look into the surrounding city ordinances on chickens, and Pat Elliott, Councilman Elliott's input on that too. So basically, like I said, without delving into it too deeply, I've compiled a list of pertinent items to be considered if you choose to look into changing the city's ordinance, current ordinance on chickens. Some of these items to be considered real quickly: definition, application, site plan, location size, letters from neighbors, neighbors' residences, and distances from neighbor residences, size and heights of these structures, sanitary and maintenance requirements for these structures, and when they're going to be maintained, disposal of the feces and that kind of stuff, attraction of rodents, noise and odor, storage, dispensing of feed, sale of chickens and byproducts, free range of chickens, slaughtering and abuse of chickens, violations and offenses, enforcement, action and removal, abatement, penalties, fines, and charges. All these things are pertinent items that need to be looked at, and I'd be a great asset while you're trying to create this for my input.
Thank you. Councilman Snitsky, anything on this?
Yes, I had talked to Building Commissioner Grassi, and I think that from back in the day, Rick, when you and I sat on council and we basically decided that domesticated animals were no longer necessary in the city, I think things have changed, and I think this is something we could and should do, but I am for some very definitive guidelines on this thing, and I don't think we want to totally leave it up to the building commissioner to decide whether it's okay or not okay. I think we need to give him some guidances, and I think that's paramount when you're dealing with this. Norm, are you there, sir? Councilman Martin, are you available?
I am.
Have you talked to Commissioner Grassi at all about this?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I was awaiting an actual language
Yeah.
To be able to review it and then have discussion.
All right. I had talked to Commissioner Grassi, and I brought up your experiences with this because you're probably, you come from a rural area, an area that had this, and I know you're not for it. Maybe that's the best reason I would appreciate it if you would get involved in talking to him, even before there's something down on paper, because I think you're in the best position to give him guidance. Even though you may end up still voting against it, I think that you have the best feeling for what parameters should be involved in this. And I would very much so like it to see if you and Commissioner Grassi would talk a little bit about it. I just think you, based upon where you've lived before and your involvement in it, I think that would be good. And I think rather than write an ordinance and then battle over the details, I would rather see that somebody that has some real feeling for this talk to the building commissioner initially and see if we can, codify it right up front. So it's your call, but I think that would help a lot in this situation.
Chairman, this is Mayor Biassiata. I'll defer to Councilman Martin for the time. I'll defer to Councilman Martin, but I'd like the floor when he's finished.
Okay, Councilman Martin, please.
Thank you. I'll be short here. Yeah, I'll make the call. I'll be glad to speak with them and outline concerns. And the craft, it may hopefully turn into the best ordinance I was ever opposed to.
Yeah, and years ago when I worked for a firm, they got a new computer system, and I told them I hated computers, and they had me update the system, and I said, why? She said, because you hate it, and you'll make it work for people that hate it. So this is sort of like that again. So I would appreciate it if you would talk to him about it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Chairman,
Mayor, go ahead. The floor is yours. Yes.
I want to make something clear here. The building commission does not make policy. The building commissioner is not going to write this ordinance. The building commissioner was asked by a member of council to do some research. He did. Typically, when we're going to ask the director, there should be a motion and a second so that one member can't direct, one member of council can't direct a member of the administration to do work. In this particular instance, it had been talked about for months, so I okayed the research. It's just kind of how things typically work. Now, that said, the ordinance will be owned by council. Council will make policy then that the administration will enforce. So, to the extent if whatever members on the council want to counsel with an E with the building commissioner, great. But at the end of the day, the building commissioner is not introducing an ordinance. A member or members of council will introduce the new ordinance. And if they want to take feedback based upon his research, I would think that would be advisable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment on this subject?
Mr. Chair, this is Councilman Elliott.
Please go ahead.
Everyone is pretty much saying what I've been saying for months now. Looking at this Cuyahoga Heights ordinance, it is not our ordinance. Things can be added to it. I am in agreement that things should be added to it. I will be more than happy to get on a call with Councilman Martin or anyone else and come up with a better way to do this. Cuyahoga Heights ordinance solves a lot of the issues that Commissioner Grassi pointed out. I've contacted them. They've never had an incident. They've never had any issues with chickens or neighbors or anything. And in this ordinance, it specifically says that if it becomes a nuisance to adjacent properties, then you can get rid of it. I'm pressing everyone to read this ordinance. If anyone's read it, please drop in and give me your feedback now, but I think we should get together. I want to put this on the agenda and then work on this. It'll have 3 readings. If we run into a problem, we can always table it for later. But I want to get this thing going and actually start digging into it. But this Cuyahoga Heights ordinance is basically a good start, I believe. So if anyone has anything else, please let me know.
Chairman, Councilman Martin.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would like to have a copy of the proposed ordinance. I do not have anything to go from.
Okay. Councilman Elliott, if you could provide that. I do remember seeing it, but if you can circulate that again. I think here's where we are. I see 3 issues here. Obviously, council is not going to be writing the ordinance. The mayor is correct. We would set the policy, but ultimately the language, the technical language of the ordinance would be prepared by the law director. We are at kind of a crossroads here. Councilman Elliott has indicated he needs to speak with the building commissioner with regard to some of the things that the building commissioner has listed, but no one else on the committee has seen yet. And once we get through that, assuming that it comes out of committee, it would have to go to the law director to be put into an ordinance form that the full council could consider. So I think where we are now is we're still in a bit of a fact-finding position. We at least in our committee, it may be that the rest of council has heard enough to proceed. I don't know that I would be willing to vote it out of committee with any kind of recommendation. I suppose if the majority wants to proceed with voting it out, I suppose I could agree to voting it out without any kind of recommendation. But I think the prudent move would be perhaps to bring it into one final meeting, allow Councilman Elliott to speak with the building commissioner, Councilman Martin to do the same, the building commissioner to circulate the extensive list that he was reading from, and for those who have not yet seen the Cuyahoga Heights legislation, to look at that and then bring it to a final decision in our next Rules Committee meeting and vote it out. What I'm saying is we could vote it out now, but I don't think I know that I'm not comfortable voting it out with a recommendation at this point.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Everyone should have a copy of several ordinances. I believe it was sent by the law department months ago. Maybe Director Pignatello can resend those.
Well, if he wants to do that, or if somebody wants to inquire of the law department, that's certainly within their discretion. But what I'm getting at is it doesn't sound like we're all as up to date on some of the things that I know we're not, because some things were brought up, particularly from the building commissioner, that I have not heard yet. So I think the prudent move would be take it to a final meeting in November, allow everybody to get whatever further information they seem to need, and then at that next meeting we would give a final, make a final vote, and then send it off to the law department to actually craft the ordinance language.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. This is Councilman Elliott. I'm okay with that. And I'm going to make sure that everyone gets a copy of this.
I agree with you, Chairperson. Well, I think that's what we should do.
Council President, yes, please.
Yes, Chairperson. I do have the ordinance here, and I've just forwarded it to all council members so they have it for future reference.
Good. Yeah, I do remember seeing it. Yeah, okay, so that part's over with. If everyone could just kind of touch base with everyone else, let's bring it to a final conclusion at our next meeting, and then decide whether we want to vote it out with a recommendation or not.
Okay, this is Councilman Elliott. I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay, Councilman Snitsky? We don't even need a motion to do that. We could just kind of hold off until the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm good with
it. Yes, Tom?
Mr. Chairman? Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm good with that too, Councilman Delaquila.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who has any comment on this before we adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, it's Pignatello.
Mr. Law Director, proceed.
maybe we could get the building commissioner to forward his list of questions. That would be helpful and prepare for next month's meeting.
Yeah, that's, I thought I did say that, but if not, then yes, that definitely would be helpful.
Maybe I missed.
That would be great.
This building commissioner.
Okay.
Yes.
At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn the Rules Committee meeting at 6:32.
Councilman Elliott, I second the motion.
It sounded like,
all in favor?
Rick, it sounded like Commissioner Grassi was trying to say something.
Okay, I will draw the motion. Mr. Grassi, please proceed.
I'm sorry. All I was saying is my research I'll send over to Rich Pignatello and have him send it out to you guys. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So, Mr. Law Director, then once you receive it, if you could send it to the rest of council and the mayor, that would be helpful. Yes?
Sure, I can do that, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I will make a motion to adjourn the Rules Committee meeting at 6:32. Is there a second?
It's Councilman Elliott, I second the motion.
Delaquila, yes?
Snitsky, yes.
Elliott, yes.
And thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson Delaquila. We'll now move on to Parks and Recreation with Chairperson Norm Martin.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. Parks and Rec's open at 6:33 p.m. Members Councilman Elliott and Councilman Stacy. There's nothing in our folder for this evening. Is there any items from the committee members?
I have nothing this evening. This is Stacy Kelly.
I don't have anything this evening. Thank you.
Okay. And no issues from the committee members? Any members on council have any comments or issues related to Parks and Rec? Hearing none, I move that we adjourn Parks and Rec at 6:34 p.m.
A second, Kelly?
Roll call. Kelly?
Aye.
Elliott?
Aye.
Martin? Aye. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson Martin. Moving on to Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development with Chairperson Tom Snitsky.
Good evening, everybody. Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development is in at 6:34. I have some motions later on this evening regarding zoning variances, so that'll take place at that time. There's one thing that I've been working on, and I presented this to the committee members and to law and to the service director, Jack Johnson, and that is to allow, and I've submitted a transmittal already for this, it is to allow the service director / arborist to spend funds out of the tree fund for planting trees in the right-of-way tree lawns of the city. And it's just a very simple amendment to ordinance number 707.3. By amending section 707.3, you revise the master street tree plan of the city, which was enacted, believe it or not, in 1963. And that's really it. There's about $65,000 sitting in the tree fund, which we can't spend. There's no mechanism for spending it on existing properties. Most of the funds that went into that fund came from the development of different lots, the development areas of the city, the subdivisions. And I think it's time that we start spending some funds out of that and allow the service director / arborist to be able to do that. So I've given copies of it to the committee. I've given copies of it to the law department and the service director. So I just basically, are there any questions? All right, if there's no questions, then I just, I would hope that law would write up an ordinance so we could have the first reading at the first meeting in November. Just so, you know, and this is the actual enabling ordinance. When we get down to the specifics of how we're going to do this, and again, I'm looking for suggestions, but based on what the Ohio Department of Natural Resources told me, the average cost to plant a tree is about $200. That means if we use every dollar in the tree fund, we have the ability to plant about 215 trees. My thought process on this, once we have the enabling legislature in there for the service director, is to have some sort of a lottery where people would basically, you know, we'll put it in the newsletter, we'll put it on the website, we'll put it out in to our email lists, that there's a lottery for the trees. You have to put your name in the lottery. You obviously have to have no tree on your tree lawn, and that anybody that would do this would have to also contribute $50 to putting, or whatever amount of money that we want, to putting in, taking advantage of this program. The reason I want to do that is I want the resident to have some skin in the game. We aren't going to go out and buy a water truck to go around and water these new trees. So I want a resident to have a little bit of incentive to go out there and water the new tree. That's after we get the enabling legislature through the process. And that's really it. That's all I have for PZB and E this evening. Does anybody else have any comments about this proposal or anything else on the committee? All right. Again, I'll be making some motions for some zoning variances later on. If nobody else has any comments or any business to bring to this committee, I will make a motion to adjourn the committee at 6:39. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. 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 We're out at 6:39. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson Thomas-Nitzke. Moving on to finance, this is Stacy Kelly. It is 6:39 p.m. I have 3 items here in my folder. The first is an ordinance request with Industrial Appraisal Company. That's in the amount of $5,875, and that's for an appraisal agreement for a fixed asset, accounting control, and insurance valuation purposes for city equipment. Is there any questions on this from the committee?
Is this a requirement to maintain our insurance coverage? Or is it required by the state? Is that why we're doing it?
Rich Petruniak, are you available,
Yes.
please, to answer that?
Chairperson Kelly, yes, this is Rich Petruniak. This is not a requirement. It's more of a control-based, and just to help solidify the insurance valuation, and also to help validate the numbers for our financial statements. We haven't done this type of inspection since 2006, so it's a good idea to do this once in a while. So we're going to revisit this now, because annually, on an annual basis, this vendor, Industrial Appraisal, they'll provide us with a maintenance update on our inventory and capital asset records, but they just can't validate or verify the numbers in their reports because the valuations are just they haven't been validated in 14 years.
Thank you, Director. So just a point of clarification. So after the appraisal, is that just good for 1 year and then they come back and reassess?
Well, this is Rich Petriniak. What they do, they maintain it by, we provide them with updated records, additions and deletions that we made throughout the year. But the valuation will stand. They're better, they're more current numbers as opposed to something from 14 years ago. So if something happens, we lose a building or something for insurance purposes, we'll have a solid number on what we can recoup for that. That's where it helps. So the valuation will stand for quite a few years. I mean, it could potentially change. In actuality, we could do this every year, but I don't know if it's worth the cost right now.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Are there any further questions by the committee? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion for agenda approval with Industrial Appraisal Company in the amount of $5,875.
Delacuilla, second.
All in favor?
Delacuilla, yes.
Martin, yes.
Kelly, yes. Okay, this is approved for the agenda. Next, let me see what I have here. An ordinance request for an agreement with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health for a public health service agreement. This is something that the city of Seven Hills enters into the county with every year. And the city is actually directed by Chapter 3709 of the ORC to provide health services either through a city health district or by a valid contract or union with the Cuyahoga Health District or an adjacent city health district. So the city's going to, through this ordinance, the city will be fulfilling its responsibility under ORC Chapter 3709 with this agreement. Any questions from the committee? Okay, I'm going to make a motion to go ahead and approve this ordinance request for an agreement with Cuyahoga County Board of Health for a public health service agreement.
Councilman Martin, second.
All in favor?
Delacuilla, yes.
Martin, yes.
Kelly, yes. This is approved for the agenda. Okay, and lastly, let me see what I have here. Okay, this looks like it's from Chief Saloom. And this is an ordinance request for a contractual agreement with the City of Parma for jail services. This was discussed as Police and Fire Committee meeting. It looks like our previous services were with the City of North Royalton, and they have terminated our prisoner housing agreement. So technically we were left without no jail agreement until the chief met with the City of Parma to provide services. One thing, I see a cost per person, per prisoner, I should say. Is there a total, how do they work the billings? Is this just as we go? Or is there just a blanket, or how does this work? You know, Chief, or maybe the Finance Director, do you know how this works?
Council President Kelly, this is Chief Saloom. Originally, that was supposed to go to the next Police and Fire Committee meeting on November 10th. That's the communication I gave the council clerk. So I wasn't expecting this to come up in your Finance Committee first.
Okay.
But with that being said, and seeing that it is in your committee, what we normally do is when we had North Royalton as our primary jail facility, I would just do, after it was passed, the contract, once a year I just do a blanket PO for, I think it's $15,000. That's approved as a part of the budget. And then they just bill us per day based on how many people we house. So, for example, if council puts this on the agenda and it gets to 3 readings, which I would obviously expect, and I think you guys all have the information based on my previous communication with council. Once it's passed, then we would just do a blanket PO and we pay as we go, same as we always done. I hope that answers your question. But like I said, I expect this to be in the next committee meeting on November 10th. So that I don't have the information in front of me, but I know what I told you is accurate.
Okay. Okay. So this already is a budgeted amount. It's just going to a different entity.
This is Chief Saloom again. You are correct, Council President. That's exactly right.
Okay. Do any committee members have a problem moving forward with this, or would you prefer to wait till the next Police and Fire Committee meeting?
Delaquila, I'm okay with proceeding.
Councilman Martin, any objection?
No objection.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to make a motion to go ahead and approve this ordinance request for a contractual agreement with the City of Parma Jail Services.
Delaquila, second.
All in favor?
Delaquila, yes.
Martin, yes.
Kelly, yes. Okay, this has been approved for the agenda. I have nothing further in my finance folder. Are there any questions or comments from our committee members? Any questions or comments from other council members?
Madam President, this is Councilman Elliott.
Councilman Elliott, the floor is yours.
Yes, I've been asked by Chief Mecklenburg to look at ordinance number 78-2020 and ask for permission to amend it by adding an emergency so he can order sooner. If the chief is on, I'd like him to explain.
Yeah, this is Chief Mecklenburg. The reason for the emergency right now, as I had said in the last meeting, Miami-Dade County passed their new fiscal year, and it should be, they're looking to place an order somewhere between 15 and 20 new fire engines from Sutphin by the end of the month. So I'm hoping to get in line before them. The longest part of the build process is basically the time that you spend in line waiting for your build to start. So being able to get in before those 20 get queued up would be kind of the difference between taking delivery in 12 to 14 months or 16 months.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman Elliott, I have no objection to adding the ER on this. If you want to make the motion when we get there.
Okay, I will do that then. I will.
Is there any objection by any other members?
No.
Okay.
No objection.
Okay. Excellent. Any further comments by other council members in regards to the Finance Committee?
Madam President,
Councilman Elliott.
I will ask for the amendment. Can anyone do the second on that? Or do you want to?
Councilman, I'll do the second.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the administration or the mayor? If there's no further questions or comments, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee at 6:50 p.m.
Delaquila, second. Delaquila, second.
Thank you. And roll call, Martin?
Yes.
Delaquila?
Yes.
Kelly? Yes. Finance Committee is adjourned at 6:50 p.m. Next up at 7 p.m. we'll begin our council meeting. Thank you all.
Just call back into the same number.